What's up, YouTube? It's the Ineradicable Iconoclast. Today marked the first of most likely what will be many days of a hearing in North Carolina. End of last year, North Carolina passed a new set of voter laws. Among them was that most of the time you're going to be required to show voter ID. And this isn't a special card. This is just government-issued photo ID. Driver's license, DMV, photo ID, really easy to get. They're doing away with same-day registration during early voting, which means, and in North Carolina there was 17 days of early voting. They've now cut that down to 10. During that period, you can't go in on that day that you want to vote and register, which is a little bit inconvenient, but no major issue. They've also eliminated registration for 16 and 17-year-olds. Pre-registration, they're calling it. There was a big push during the 2008-2012 elections to pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds so that when they hit 18, they were able to vote. They were already registered. They were good to go. They're doing away with that. Mostly. If you want to register at 17, you can, as long as you will hit 18 before the next election day. So essentially, you're just registering ahead of time, like you always have. So again, that's no big change. But it's not about the laws. That's not what I'm talking about. The United States Department of Justice, the NAACP, the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, and several historic black community colleges are arguing for an injunction against these new laws, which they find are unconstitutional. They say that these new set of laws violate the 26th Amendment, among other things. But they violate the 26th Amendment, which is the amendment that it dropped the voting age from 21 down to 18. And it also has, and I quote, that the right to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of age. Now, they're not really doing that. All they're saying is you can't register ahead of time. You can still vote at 18, which is what the amendment says. They're not taking that away. So they're not breaching that constitutional amendment. So that whole argument is kind of null and void. However, the NAACP, they're the primary arguer in this. They assert that this would result in tens of thousands of poor black voters being turned away at the polls, and that this is a full assault on all minority voters. I don't see that. I really don't. Because the NAACP, and their logic behind this, is that due to the older generations, there's a lot of people who don't have birth certificates. Apparently they don't have government. They're not on the grid, I guess would be the way to put it. But do they not have driver's license? Do they not have bank accounts or anything? I mean, they have to be. There can't be that many people who really have no documentation other than the illegals, which, I mean, of course, that's a different issue. But they say that the reason why this is designed to prevent black people from voting is because it requires photo ID, and that it would be so difficult for the older generation and many younger black people to do this. But I don't understand that. That doesn't make sense. All it is a driver's license. If you can't get a driver's license, don't most people have driver's licenses? Or at least a valid photo ID issued by the DMV? Even if you have your license taken away, you can still get that. They say that this is the worst attack on African Americans since Jim Crow laws. And for those of you who don't actually know what Jim Crow laws are, you may have heard the term, you may know what they are, in which case you'll know what I'm saying. Jim Crow laws, they were different in each state, but the majority of them outlawed something called miscegenation, which, to put it simply, is interracial marriage and breeding. And Jim Crow laws were, as most of us know, the cornerstone of segregation in the late 19th and 20th centuries, to the mid-20th centuries, where they had the different lunch counters, they had the different fountains, the different schools. It is the separate, it's segregation is what Jim Crow laws are. Those are the laws that backed it up. The issue I take with this is that if you think having to get a driver's license or valid photo ID, if you think that's the same thing as not being allowed to marry somebody who's not your nationality, but not your race, or being told you're not allowed to eat with certain people by law, or you can't swim in this pool, or you can't use the same school books that white people use. If you think that's the same thing, then you are so far out of touch. You have got your head so far up your ass that I don't even know what the fuck you're thinking anymore. And over the past decade, Republicans have been pushing for this. They've been campaigning to tighten rules for voters, including requirements for photo ID, in the name of preventing fraud. That has been the main drive here. The Democrats, of course, have countered that the real purpose of these laws is to make voting more difficult for people who are likely to vote Democratic. But that doesn't make sense, because there's no way that they would actually be able to isolate Democratic voters. It's an idiotic argument, because when you get your driver's license, they don't ask you what your political affiliation is. When you register to vote, they may. But you don't have to answer that. You could just say you're independent. Another thing that they are doing is they're doing away with the one box in North Carolina where you check what party you want everything to go to, which I think is a really good idea, because I don't understand why you would want to vote blindly for an entire party anyway. That's beside the point. The problem here is that NAACP, particularly Reverend William Barber, he's turned this into some NAACP crusade, and it's not. It's not. All these requirements is that you prove that you've registered to vote. That's it. You register to vote. They have your name on a list in the precinct you're supposed to vote, and you show ID, and they mark you off. That way you can only vote once. You can't vote in every precinct. One person gets one vote. That's the way it's designed. And all this is an attempt to protect that, because there has been suspicion of voter fraud in North Carolina and many other states. But once again, people want to fight this. People want to fight. They want to go, oh, well, what right do you have to verify that I am who I say I am? And if we're going to do away with that, then if we do away with voter ID, then what's to stop somebody from voting 5, 6 times, 15 times? What's to stop somebody who's not registered to vote at all from voting in all 50 states? This is an argument that never should even come up. It's a minor request. It really is. Yet it's become some huge crusade with it. ACLU and the League of Women Voters and college students across the state are now saying that it's some conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. All it is it's just like driving a car. You need to have proper documentation that you're allowed to do it. It's even easier to vote. All you have to do is put your name down and go, I want to vote. That's it. And then you prove you are who you say you are. I don't understand this argument. So tell me what you think. Do you agree that it should just be anarchy and we can all vote wherever the hell we feel like because we don't want the government to actually keep a list of our names? Which kind of does make sense, but or do you think that the voter ID rules do make sense? That this whole thing is being blown out of proportion? Tell me what you think in the comments down below. Once again, this is the Anti-Radical Iconoclast.